I didn't realize there was a problem until the drinking escalated and it went from being a luxury to a necessity.
Yeah.
And once that happens, there's no going back, you know? It's kind of like once you're a diabetic, you're always going to be a diabetic. There is no going back to not being a diabetic. It's the same thing. Because what a lot of people don't realize is addiction is basically a rewiring of your prefrontal cortex. You know, it's a rewiring in your brain.
Welcome to the Queer Quest podcast, your beacon of light and sprinkle of glitter in the queer community. I'm your host, Christiano Green, CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for queer individuals. And together, we're embarking on a journey of transformation. Each week, we bring you a new training topic or connect you with visionary queer leaders in healing and coaching, diving deep into conversations that inspire growth, celebrate diversity, and empower you to live authentically. So wherever you are, settle in and let's get ready to unlock the vibrant potential within. This is where your quest begins. Hello, you fabulous souls, and welcome to this week's episode of the Queer Quest podcast. I'm your host, Christiano Green, and this week on the podcast, well, I don't know what I was about to say then, but on the podcast, I have a very special guest here today, Richard Delucia. He is a former client of mine, and he has been through a journey, to say the least, in life. And we're going to get into it today, but he's dealt with a lot of, grief and a lot of loss. He's almost 120 days sober, and we're going to talk about that today. So I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today, Richie. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so excited to have you because we haven't spoken for a little while. And as I said, Richie was a client of mine, and we worked together for quite some time. And so I'm super excited on my end to hear how things have been going since then, but also, sharing your journey with the audience today.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that. 100%.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a journey. 100%. It really has been.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, maybe we can start with, I know that we mentioned that you dealt with a lot of grief, a lot of loss in your life. Maybe, if you can, paint the picture to the audience of the kind of level of grief and loss that you've actually had.
Well, I would say the biggest ones would be my best friend and my mother and father. And the scary thing is they all died the exact same way, 20 years apart.
Yes.
My mom was, in 2018, my mother had a massive stroke. She was very sick. She was in a lot of pain, in and out of rehabs and hospitals and things like that. She went home for 2 days. She fell. She ended up with a fracture in her neck, a bruise on her brain. She was in the hospital and suffering very badly. My parents were married 47 years, and she was the love of his life. And my dad, he couldn't stand to watch her suffer anymore. And he went to the hospital. He shot her and then himself, and left me a note saying, "Please forgive me. I can no longer watch your mother suffer, and I can't live without her." And as I said, my best friend and parents died the same way. My best friend's father shot and killed the whole family, then killed himself.
Wow.
So, and that was 20 years apart. I was 20 when my best friend died and his family, and I was 40 when my parents passed away. So those were probably, and I've lost aunts, uncles, all four grandparents and friends, and I've been to more wakes and funerals than I can count in my life. So, all in the interim of these things, of those two were the most impactful, I want to say, in my life, the most traumatic for me to go through.
And I would say that out of kind of any loss, they're probably the most kinds of traumatic losses that you could have, murder, suicide kind of environments. Yeah. Like, you can never see them coming, right?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I was with them the day before at the hospital. I spoke to my dad 10:30 at night the night before they died. And I had no clue I was going to wake up an orphan, because I'm an only child. So I had no clue I was going to wake up an orphan. Not at all.
Of course. Yeah. And so for
So that
Rich,
was
share with us what kind of an impact that has on you as a person, as a soul, as a, you know, like must have, of course, it's had a huge impact on.
it's pretty shattering. Pretty shattering, you know. I realized that probably for most of it, I put up front, you know. I was, you know, grew up an only child in an Irish Italian household. So, you know, my dad was my role model, you know, and he was always the provider, and he was always the strong one, and he was always, you know, the one that everyone leaned on and things like that. So now I was that person, you know. So, you know, I had to plan the wake, the funeral, settle the estate, and, you know, all these things. And I went into let's take care of business mode, basically. And my feelings kind of got pushed down to the bottom of a bottle then, basically, is what happened.
It's a coping mechanism when we do those things, right?
Oh, drinking is 150% a coping skill.
Yeah.
Absolutely a coping skill. It's not a very good one, but it's still a coping skill.
In the moments we actually feel that it's good when we're caught up in it until we realize how bad it is, you know?
Yeah, and that's basically what happened to me. Like, you know, for many years, like I would have, you know, I would go out, I would have drinks, I would, you know, at night, you know, I'd have work, I'd have dinner, I'd have a couple of drinks at night, and then I'd go to bed, and I'd wake up and I'd go to work again. And I wouldn't have a couple of drinks until like 8, 9 o'clock at night, you know, and then just to kind of shut my mind down to go to sleep, you know, because I was never a fan of medication. So I didn't want to take like sleep aids or anything. So that was my sleep aid, basically, you know, and that's how I looked at it at the time.
And that's what many people would do, right? And, have a glass or two at the end of the night to wind down and go to bed.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a huge part of the country that, you know, many people, they'll have a couple glasses of wine, couple of drinks, couple of beers, whatever, just to unwind from the day.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they call it happy hour. You
Of
know,
course.
it's the after work. You know, happy hour usually starts 5 or 6 o'clock because it's when everyone finishes work.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why they call it happy hour for a reason. But you know, for me, it was it took a while for me to realize, but it was a coping skill for me. You know, it was just burying what I didn't want to deal with, or what I didn't want to recognize or deal with. You know, and that's one thing that this journey of recovery has taught me is that's what I was doing. You know, and I didn't realize there was a problem until the drinking escalated, and it went from being a luxury to a necessity.
Yeah.
And once that happens, there's no going back. You know, it's kind of like once you're a diabetic, you're always going to be a diabetic. There is no going back to not being a diabetic. It's the same thing. Once that, because what a lot of people don't realize is addiction is basically a rewiring of your prefrontal cortex. You know, it's a rewiring in your brain. Once that brain gets rewired, it is not rewiring. It is not going backwards.
Of course. So once
It's just
you're addicted to alcohol and you all day, you know, then it becomes, like I said, as I said, like your brain is now rewired to need that thing, and you either have it and you have it all the time, or you have to cut it out, right?
Yeah, addiction really, it's an entity of its own. You know, it's like having the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder all day, every day.
For sure.
Is what it is like. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. You know, people who have never had an issue with addiction, you know, I've heard stories from people who they've had family members be like, oh, well, just stop. Well, if it was that simple, don't you think I'd do it?
And maybe you can share with everyone as well, how bad it got for you, so that people, for someone who to say just stop. If you were just having 2 drinks a night, of course, it's easy for you to just to stop. But share with us how the limits of it got to.
AA calls it the allergy.
Yeah.
So that's before you have the allergy, or the brain rewires to being an addict. And just because someone drinks, and even though even someone can drink like on a daily basis, and their brain never rewires it like that. It's just but some people have, that's why they call it an allergy, because some people it doesn't turn into that. But for people who have that allergy, once that happens, it goes from like I said, a luxury to a necessity. So it got to the point where I would get up in the morning, I'd feel like crap, and the only way to not feel like that was to drink. I was having withdrawal symptoms. I was having DTs, which is my hands were shaking and my legs were shaking, but I'd get like a drink or two in me, and it would stop. I'd be throwing up. I would be, and it was like there was a time like before I went to rehab, like I spent like 3 days drinking and I hadn't eaten solid food. Now, mind you, I did have gastric sleeve, so I don't feel hunger, so that's a little different for me. But that made it even worse for me with the alcohol, because I metabolize things different. So that made it worse with the alcohol. But and it made it worse because I don't actually get hungry. So I literally spent like 3 days just doing nothing but drinking whiskey on the rocks. So, I mean, of course I was going to be, and, when I went to detox the first time, it was like, I was a mess. I went into detox with ice and whiskey in a Yeti. I went into detox with it. And I said to them, I said, here, take this, there's whiskey in it, So, and they're like, okay, thanks for telling us. Because usually they look for things, they feel like you can find something. I'm like, no, you don't have to look here. You gotta look for nothing. So, but yeah, it got that bad where I could barely even, I mean, packing my bag was horrific. Like I felt like it took me 4 hours to pack a bag when it probably took me a half an hour. It probably took me like 40 minutes, but it felt like 4 hours. Because I would pack a few things and I'd have to sit down and have a few more sips. Pack a few things, sit down, have a few more sips. Because I just felt so horrible. And then I'll tell you one thing that does keep me sober every day is I make a conscious point to remember what it felt like going through the withdrawal.
I was going to say,
Because
talk to us, a little bit about like leading up to it, like what you were dealing with emotionally leading up to the moment before you went to rehab, and then let's talk about the withdrawals. Yeah.
Well, I was like, I just pretty much was like, I can't live like this anymore. I just can't. I can't feel like this anymore. I just can't. I got to do something. I got to do something.
Everything that you had kind of pushed down was slowly bubbling up, right? It was bubbling up, and it was affecting your entire life.
Forget bubbling up. It was bubbling over like volcanically, So it was really, it got really bad. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't, it's too much. That's why I made the decision to get some help. And,
what led to that final decision? Because of course it had been going on for quite some time and progressively getting worse. What made you finally make that decision?
Well, I was with my ex at the time, and he was an addict, and I had seen his lapses in the past, and I was like, okay, I'm seeing the signs of this is how bad this is, because I was feeling the way I was used to watch him get, when he would relapse. So, and I was starting to feel that way when he couldn't get his drug of choice, which was different. But when he relapsed and couldn't get his drug of choice, I was starting to feel like I would watch him feel. And I recognized the signs of it. And I said, uh-oh.
I need some
There's
help.
Yep. And then he and I were kind of sort of together at the time when I went to rehab the first time. And he was watching my house and my dog. And so I came home from rehab, and within 3 days, I figured out that he had relapsed again while I was in rehab. And I tried getting him help. I sent him to a detox. He left the next day, and I haven't heard from him since.
I see.
So, when I went back, and then after I got rid of him, it was very emotional for me. And I was only home from rehab for 3 days. I was not emotionally ready to deal with this,
You were and you've been in rehab at that point for a month or a few weeks?
45 days.
45 days. And how were
45.
the withdrawal symptoms, that first experience, the first 45 days? How was that in rehab?
Well, so when you go in, first you go to detox, you go to a detox facility first, and they medically detox you. So they taper you with Valium, and they also give you another medication to prevent seizures. Because a lot of people don't realize alcohol is one of the you can die from alcohol withdrawal versus other drugs. It's not like that. Alcohol withdrawal, you can have a seizure and die. And so they give you medication to make sure you don't have a seizure. And then they do like a 5 or 6 days. They start with a high dose of Valium at the beginning, and they taper you off it for like 5 or 6 days to ease as much as they can the withdrawals. But for the first like couple of days when you're in that detox, you're pretty much in bed. Your hands are shaking, you're sweating, you're freezing, you're nauseous, it's absolutely like a day feels like a week. It is absolutely miserable. And once you finish your detox, then you go to a rehab facility. So I did I think it was 5 days in detox, then 45 in rehab first.
Okay.
Then I came home, sent him to detox. He left the next day. I was a basket case, and so I had like a 2-day whoopsie daisy. And then I realized when that happened, I said, okay, I am not going to throw away everything or all the work I just put in.
Correct.
For this. So I called up one of the girls from the rehab that I know very well. And I said, yeah, I did a bad thing. And she does a lot of the intake, and she deals with all the intakes. She's like, all right, what do you need from me? What do you need from me now? I was like, look, this is what happened. She's like, all right, can you go today? Can you go now? So I called. I got my dog into the pet sitter, who is wonderful, by the way. She was like in a resort staying with a family. It was great. She didn't even miss me. And the funny thing is, when I called the son, I told him I was honest, and I said, listen, this is what happened. And they want me to go to detox and rehab tonight. And
so
he was actually out.
You had to go back through the detox program first again, the 5 days?
Well, because I had already stopped drinking for 2 days, and I was already I already stopped drinking for 2 days at that point.
So you did it for 2 days, you stopped for 2 days, and you went in.
And then I stopped for 2 days. So the alcohol was pretty much out of my system, but so I did like 3 or 4 days in detox. They wanted to just monitor me to make sure I didn't have a seizure. But I went into the detox and they breathalyzed me. I was zeros. There was no alcohol in my system. But I still knew, okay, the fact that I did this is not good. I need to work this out.
You need some extra support.
Yeah. So that's why I did it. And like I said, the funny thing is when I called the son about picking up the dog, he said to me, he was out and about. He said, listen, listen, I've been through treatment myself for something different. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I understand what you're going through, which I thought was so amazing.
Kind
It's like,
people,
wow.
the kindness of strangers or people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That I would find someone that I never knew he went through treatment, but I did now. And so that was absolutely amazing to find out. I was like, wow, like I didn't know this. So I said, I said, wow. So he got to my house in 20 minutes, picked up the dog. And then I had an Uber take me back to detox. Was there for 4 days, and then I spent 60 days in rehab. And then I came home December 1st and went back to work December 5th.
Okay.
And tomorrow's 120 days without a drink.
It's amazing, first of all. Congratulations to that 120 days, especially, you know, with how bad it was. And so talk to us about what happened in that first 45 days, the first rehab session, that then what changed within the next 60 sessions. So let's get a bit of a picture, because I know from a lot of experience and a lot of people that I speak to, you're not the first person to go into rehab and then come out and relapse. It's quite a common thing. So like, you know, it's not uncommon that people do that. But let's talk about the first 45 days, what you learned about yourself, what you were able to process, and then we'll move on to like the second part of that as well.
Well, the first time I went, you know, the treatment center I went to was, first of all, amazing place. I would say 95% of the people that work there are in treatment themselves. They're in recovery. Okay.
Yes.
Which is very important, because you know what? They get it.
They get it.
95% of the employees, they go to meetings every week. They have home groups that they go to, whether it's for AA, CA, NA, whatever it is, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
They go to meetings. They have sponsors. They sponsor people. They have sponsors and are sponsors. You know, aside from working in the treatment field, you know, from the counselors to the techs that stay at the houses to the case managers to all of them, which is, like I said, it's very important because they understand what we go through.
Exactly. They get it.
Yeah. And all of the people there were just amazing. They really were. And I learned a lot. And one thing about where I went is that they're on the more holistic side, which is right up my alley.
Good.
They even had a Reiki class every week, and they had a special one. They had a class dedicated to grief. They had a class dedicated to trauma. So I learned a lot about and dealing with a lot of the things that I hadn't dealt with in the past.
You've been suppressing for so long, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was able to get so much out of that bottle. You know, that everything I bottled up, I was able to really, really pour that bottle out a lot, you know. So a lot of the focus was like on those things. And the thing is that, you know, like I had it in my head because, you know, Eduardo and I were kind of working things out and everything. You know, so he was in the picture at the time, like I said, the first time.
Yes.
You know, I had a lot of it where I figured, you know what, we can go to meetings together. We can do, you know, we can do commitments together for, you know, find a home group together and do commitments, volunteer work for AA and things like that. And, you know,
you had a vision. You had a vision for how your recovery was going to be and how it was going to also be part of your relationship as well, right?
Right. And be part of the recovery process for him too, you know. But So basically, when I came home and, everything hit the fan, and I wasn't really prepared for it, and I went back. One thing you mentioned about a lot of people who have been in recovery and relapsed and things like that. The one thing that I learned about relapses is that as much as you don't want to see someone relapse, in the recovery process, for lack of better phrasing, relapsing is kind of necessary.
Yes.
Because major learning experience. I learned a lot from
that.
the relapse. And what I learned is that I can't change anyone else. I can't expect anyone else to change for me. The only person I can change is myself.
Yeah.
And I can only worry about the things I do in my life. And I cannot worry about what anyone else does, says, is nothing. It's none of my damn business, basically.
Yeah.
I can only worry about me and what I do and the way I focus on myself and carry myself. And that's the difference with what I learned. I mean, I kept working on the other things when I went back the second time, but the main difference between the two is that I learned this. This is what I learned the second time. And I think learning that is what has kept me sober for
the past 120 days almost, right?
Yeah. It was what's kept me sober since, I came home from rehab on December 1st. It's now almost February. So, for the last couple of months, that's part of what's kept me sober.
And the amazing part of that is, like I said, half of it was in the facility and half of it now has been at home, where of course temptation is there if you choose it to be, right?
Oh, of course, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing to stop me from running down to the store, or I live in a complex. Okay, I've told you before, I live in a country club complex. Yes. Where we have a bar restaurant on premises in the clubhouse, walking distance from my house. I could walk to the bar, if I wanted to. I don't, Well, I'm not going to say I don't. I did the other day because I really wanted one of their burgers, because their burgers are really good. So I went the other day and had a burger and a Coke.
Much better choice, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Now, and I sat at the bar and had it. It didn't bother me. Because I honestly, I don't even want to smell it. I really don't.
No need to.
I'm at the where I went to, like I said, they opened a new gay bar not far from here, and a friend of mine hosts a karaoke show, which I'm a karaoke junkie.
Karaoke fanatic, yeah.
And I used to host karaoke shows way back when. And so, my friend was hosting a new show, and so I wanted to go support her. She's trans, and it's a gay bar. So I said, okay, well, of course I want to go support the show. So I went, and I haven't seen her in since before all of this happened, way before all this happened. And I went and I drank ginger ale, and so a few of us sitting at the bar before the show started, someone spilled their drink on the bar. I mean, they just happened to bleed into it. It was an accident. Nobody, it wasn't, they were drunk because the night had just started, but they happened to lean the wrong way and drink spilled. So I got a waft of the liquor in my nose. I was like, oh dear Christ. I wanted to clutch my pearls if I was wearing them. But yeah, pearls, I'd have clutched them because I was like, oh God, the smell. So, but yeah, and but it didn't bother me to be there. If anything, the smell of the liquor reminded me oh God, I really don't want this, but yeah, it didn't bother me to be there. I drank soda all night. And it's funny now, the other gay bar that's on the Jersey, the one that's on the Jersey Shore, because I live in New Jersey, about 30 minutes from my house, they actually just introduced a brand new mocktail menu.
Beautiful.
They have a brand new mocktail menu with like they muddle fresh berries and rosemary and all these things. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I don't mind. I went there when they did their launch party for it, and I tried a couple of them, and I was like, wow, these are pretty good. I could legit drink these all night. You know, these are good because they mix some great flavors together, and that's what I like. I used to bartend, so I love that kind of stuff.
I remember you would make cocktails for everyone when they came to your house, right? You're a big.
I did. Yeah. I was a bartender years ago, so I would always make different cocktails. You know, I still say I make the best tiramisu martini in town.
Yeah.
I make one, I drink it, but I can still make it.
Yeah.
It's funny when around the holidays when I told like family and stuff when I was sober, like for the holidays, the one thing my cousin Gina said, she's like, oh my God, I'm upset. I'm like, you're upset I got sober? She goes, well, who's gonna make me coquito every year now? For those who don't know, coquito is like a Spanish version of eggnog made with rum. So, and different milks and things like that, cinnamon. So it's a holiday, like Puerto Rican holiday drink. And I made it really well. So I said, Gina, I can make it for you. I just can't drink it. She's like, oh, okay, thanks. So yeah, I mean, I'm okay around it. It doesn't bother me anymore. You know, like I don't have the desire for it, which is one thing the whole process taught me is I'm like, you know, I never want to go through that withdrawal thing again because it was just horrific. And the second time I actually, you know, when I went to detox, I hadn't had a drink for 2 days, but I withdrew by myself in my house. Wasn't as bad as the first time, which normally relapse, the withdrawals are worse. But I think because I relapsed for such a short period of time, it wasn't that bad. Yeah. And so I relapsed on my not relapsed. I went through the withdrawal process on my couch drinking Gatorlight to replenish my electrolytes and boost protein shakes to give me nutrients. And that's how I got through it. So that's why by the time I went in, and like I said, they just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to have a seizure, even though I never had a seizure before. They wanted to just be.
That's the most important thing, is that they were there to do their duty of care, to make sure that you were in a health space, that when you go into rehab, you do it right. And so, you know, that's the important thing. But again, you knew what to expect, and you went through the worst of it at home. And as you said, you only did it for a short period of time. And I think that amazing thing that you probably learned in those first 45 days was that drinking for you now was a choice. And you did it for 2 days, and you went through that period, but you quickly made the choice to say, I no longer want to do this. I'm not giving up on all the hard work that I went through. I didn't go through the pain and the torture and the dealing with the processing to come back here and fall apart. So you did the right thing to go back in. And as you said, now 120 days. That's fantastic.
It's the fact that I went through it for the 45 that gave me the knowledge to recognize pretty early what I was doing and what was going on, you know, because I thought, you know, I can handle this. It's fine. I can have just a couple and blah, 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 which is what.
This is the thing we tell ourselves all the time. And I know this from my own previous experience of going through that. It was that, yeah, you always said, oh yeah, it's fine. I'll just have one. And then you never get satisfied with just one. And you get the taste of it.
And then it's off to the races.
Literally off to the races. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if anyone has ever read the AA Big Book, there's a few stories in there about that people in the early days of AA, or when AA was being founded, there are stories in there of you know, people who just don't, oh, well, I could just do it once. I could just do it once. Or I could have one. You know, like there's a story of a guy who was sober for a long time, and he stopped at a place for a bite to eat, and he's like, well, I have a full stomach. And he ordered a sandwich and a milk, and then he ordered another sandwich, another glass of milk. And he said, well, you know, I had 2 sandwiches, my second sandwich and a second glass of milk, and I could throw some whiskey in the milk. We did. Oh, well, that there was no problem with that. Well, okay, well, I can have another, if I throw it in the milk, it dilutes it a lot and I have a full stomach. And well, by the time he left, he was three sheets to the wind and back off to the races. Because there is no, and that's the thing about addiction, why they say you with the fact that your brain gets rewired, because the addiction talks to you. It tries to tell you, no, it's okay. That's that voice. One of the guys who works at the rehab, he's a tech for the houses. He's an older Black gentleman. We always called him Mr. Mike. And this month, Mr. Mike is 20 years sober. This month. And he's a very religious man. He does what's called celebrate recovery, which is very, very spiritually religious driven form of recovery. And he just says, you know what? When you're in your addiction, you're walking hand in hand with the enemy. You're not going to have any problems. But when you're in recovery, you're the enemy's enemy now, and the enemy wants you back. That's how he always puts it. So sometimes I refer to, addiction as the enemy because of Mr. Mike, who he still texts and calls me all the time. Lovely, lovely, lovely man. But it's and that's one thing. Another thing I have to say about the place I was. Since I've been home, I'm still talking to some of the house techs. Some of the therapists still call me. Some of the house techs still text me. And I ended up meeting so many amazing people, like the guys that were in the house that I was living in. I was living with like 9 or 10 guys at different times, anywhere from 7 to, I was living anywhere between with 7 to 11 guys at one time in a house. Very nice house too. Wasn't like a hovel or anything. It was a really lovely house. We're all still friends to this day.
That's good.
We all reach out to each other. We all still text each other. Actually, 2 of them were texting me earlier to check in on me, and so we could have a check-in with and another 2 of them yesterday, where I was checking in with 2 of them last night, texting, hey, how's it going? How are you feeling? How's life? What's going on in life? And breaking each other's chops as usual. But some of the most amazing friends, amazing people. And honestly, it's like people I would never think I'd be friends with. And I'm sure I'm in the same category for them, but it all just worked.
That's beautiful. And that's kind of what you want to have is to build these connections. And we are going to just take a quick break right now, but we're going to come back and we're going to continue that. And I want to also talk a little bit more about some of the gifts that you have. So let's take a quick break and we'll be back and we'll talk a little bit more about those things in just a moment.
Are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards love and happiness? Introducing the 21-day Gateway's Guide to Love and Happiness. This isn't just a course, it's a pathway to discovering your true self, overcoming challenges, and embracing happiness. Join hundreds of gay men who found joy and freedom. Learn from Christiano Green, a coach with 20 years experience and a journey like yours. For a limited time, get this life-changing course at 75% off with a 100% risk-free guarantee. There's nothing to lose, but so much to gain. Your new life is just a click away. Enroll in the 21-day Gateway's Guide to Love and Happiness today. Visit theglobalpridecollective.com and start your journey towards a happier, more fulfilled you.
And we are back with Richie, and we were just talking a lot about your journey of sobriety and how it's been for you. And I'd love for us to maybe tie it up in the sense of like, talk about what are you doing on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis right now that is helping you in the journey of sobriety. What does that look like for you now? And what does life look like for you now as well?
Well, I work full time. So, I do work from home. So it's, that part of it, working from home is actually a little bit of, it's a mixed bag, I love the fact that I have a commute down the hallway.
Yes.
Actually, the fact that I live in a place where it snows. So, I don't have to commute to an office anymore. So that's nice. The fact that I'm working from home has allowed me the ability to get my little puppy because I'm home with her every day. As I showed you before, she's only a year old.
You're beautiful little girl. Yeah.
Yes, my little Shih Tzu. Um, and so I'm able to have her. So I have her for company now, which is really nice. I'm trying to do different things at work to bring awareness about mental health because working from home is very isolating. So I'm trying to do that with work too. So doing positive things with that. Day to day, I mean, one thing I try and do on a daily basis is journal about my feelings. And, if I had any negative feelings that day or whatever it was, positive feelings, I try and just journal down. I don't journal about like my day or my customers that I talk to on the phone or all that. I try and journal about, how did I feel at this point? Did I have any very positive feelings, but anything negative feelings? How am I, was it a tough day for me? Was it some, so journaling helps. I try and go to a couple of meetings a week. I'm still working on my steps, with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
I'm still working on. So I try and work on my steps a few times a week also. And I do try and get out at least once a week to socialize with people, because working from home, there are times where it's days and I don't leave my house. And, I love my little puppy, but she's not much of a conversationalist.
Yeah.
And
you like to have good conversation.
Yeah. And the other thing is because, I work in telecommunications, I'm on the phone all day and I'm talking about phones. So the last thing I want to do is be on a phone.
Of course.
And have talk to someone on the phone because I'm on them all day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mixed bag, it's there's pros and cons to the whole work from home thing, and but on the whole, it's really good. Like I'm able to focus on more, I'm able to do more, and I'm able to do more for myself, and going to meetings, like I've been meeting like a lot more people. I have found some LGBT meetings in the area that are only like 20, 30 minutes from my house. There's a couple of those a week, not far from me. So, which I didn't realize there were until last time I went to recovery. Though I'm like, they have meetings, just LGBT AA meetings.
They called them from where I was when I went to them. It was called Gay AA.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a website for anyone out there who might be listening. It's Gay AA, and so I'm not sure if it's gayaa.com or .org, but if you Google Gay AA, you'll find that there are many resources for people in our community that are handy for people who may be struggling with alcoholism or other addictions as well.
Yeah, and even AA has an app for meetings. It's a meeting finder app, and it's like a blue app with like a almost like a yellow chair on it, and you can actually filter for LGBT meetings in your area.
Fantastic.
So if there are any meetings, you can actually filter it to find not just AA meetings within a certain mileage, but you can filter it for LGBT, and it'll filter it for you. So if there are any in your area, it'll pop right up, and you can put for each day what you want it for. So that's pretty cool.
That is really
that they have that. So I found that. So yeah, I'm meeting a lot of nice people. I'm kind of building myself slowly. A
new circle.
Sober network, but also a sober network and a gay sober network too.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So yeah, no, I feel healthier than I ever did. 100%.
And what's the next part of your journey look like? Now that you've reached 120 days, is there anything else that you want to be like working on within yourself? I know that, and we didn't really talk a little bit about this, but you, like I said, you were once, quite a lot bigger than you are, and you lost a lot of weight. You did a surgery to help you with that. Where are you at when it comes to your mental, physical, emotional health and fitness?
Well, yes, I did have gastric sleeve surgery in July of 2014. So I'm coming up on 10 years.
Yeah.
Before the surgery, I was over 400 pounds, and now I'm about like 215, 220. But I am also 6'3", so it is proportionate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel good about it. I really do. As far as physically, everyone asks, I didn't have any of the skin removal surgery or anything. So I do have some insecurities about that, but the way I look at it, like, you know what? I'm 46 years old. It's like, all right, I look the way I look. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I'm at the point now where
self-acceptance of your body and loving your body.
yeah, and I'm at the point now where I'm like, you know what? It's I'm single. I'm my thing is I have a lot going for me. I have my shit together, pardon French. I have all my stuff together as far as, my home, my job, I mean, I've been at the same job for over 23 years. I have about 4 years left and I'm eligible to retire. So I'm actually looking towards like, okay, well, and one thing that this journey has taught me that I'm actually going to get my CABC when I retire, and for New Jersey, and become a drug and alcohol counselor.
Amazing.
It's going to be my next phase after once I retire.
So many
this
people
way I
go
can
through this journey want to help others, and I think that's a beautiful thing for you to do as well.
Yeah, well, like I said, 95% of the people at my center were in recovery. So because they get it, so if I can do that for someone else, what they all did for me, it's a way for me to, of course, I'm going to need to work in today's day and age, even after I retire, because I'm only going to be 50 years old. But it's a way for me to enjoy what I'm doing and love going to work every day. And it's also a way for me to give back at the same time. So it's doing work and doing service at the same time, which could I ever ask for more? Because they say the one thing that keeps people sober is doing service.
Acts of service, yeah.
Is the main thing of keeping yourself sober, is acts of service. So it would be a way for me to not to be doing service for others, but also keeping myself sober at the same time. And okay, if I'm making money, I'm making money.
Meaningful work as well, right? Meaningful work.
Yeah, I'll be doing something I love instead of doing something to pay bills.
And it also means that all of the struggles, the trials, that you went through, they weren't for nothing. They were there for you to support and help so many other people who've gone through who are going through the struggles right now,
Yeah, well, I always say everything in the universe happens for a reason, and there are no coincidences in the universe. So I went through these things in order for the universe to teach me what my life purpose is supposed to be.
100%.
Is the way I see it.
And I love that. And while we're on the topic of that, I know that you've been led in a few different directions when it comes to the gifts that you have. So I'd love for you to share a little bit with the audience. You're a Reiki healer. You also are a medium. Talk a little bit about that journey that you've been on, because of course I'm sure on that journey of helping others in the realm of sobriety, some of that stuff is going to be powerful as well to add to the counseling, the drug and alcohol stuff, right?
Oh, 150%. 150%. So I am a dual certified Reiki master teacher. I am certified in 2 different types of Reiki, and I'm certified in traditional Reiki, as well as what's called Karuna Reiki. It's also known as the Reiki of compassion. And that basically heals on a higher frequency. And it can also heal on a karmic and cellular level. And one of the major things that actually deals with, which I've been a certified master teacher for over a decade, and one of the things that Karuna actually helps to deal with is addiction.
Yeah.
It helps to deal with trauma, helps to deal with addiction, for treating those specific things. And so that's been a very big help. I will say, after my parents passed, my gifts were a lot on the block side. And then with the alcohol, of course, that didn't help.
Of course.
But when I went through the recovery process the first time, and I started getting a lot more clarity in dealing with things I needed to deal with, I felt all of these things coming back to me full force.
I thought
I
that that was
started
happening for you. Yeah.
I started feeling people's emotions more. I started feeling spirit more around other people. I started getting more, I don't want to say detailed, but maybe more detailed or intricate messages. I was able to define it more, put more clarity to what feelings I was getting, from other people and from the spirits that were around other people. And it's interesting because there were a couple of times when I was in treatment that I did give a couple of people messages from loved ones that passed. And they were astounded. And it's funny, one of the things that they did, as I mentioned before, at my treatment center, they did Reiki classes every week. And I remember one day, and they didn't know, because I told them that I did Reiki and everything. So they weren't sure if the girl who does Reiki there, who's a Reiki master, if she would be okay or intimidated with having another Reiki master in her class. So, but she was all for it. She's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." Because I happened to meet her before a class one day before I got my schedule there. And she's like, "Oh my God, you are?" Because someone told her. And she's like, "Oh wow." She's like, "You're gonna take my class, right?" I'm like, "Oh, I'd like to." She's like, Please do, please do it." Okay. So we got to know each other. So the second time I was there, she was actually pregnant. And she came in one day and they overbooked the Reiki class that day. So she goes, "Hey, Rich." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "This is a pretty big class. Would you mind helping me today?" I said, "If you want me to." She's like, "How about you do that half and I'll do this half?" I said, "Sure." So I ended up treating half of the room
Beautiful.
in tandem with the other half of the room. And then at the end of it, because we had talked about it beforehand, we talked about it for a minute before we started, because everyone that was on both sides had been in her class before. So they knew what her healing felt like. So we kind of spoke to the people that I did the healing on to see what were some of the differences, because I have a second certification that she doesn't have. So it is a very different healing. It's a very different healing, and I do it a different way, and it gives a very different, experience. Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of the word. And it's funny because one of the guys that was in there was like, I said, "You know something?" He's like, "I actually got lightheaded. That's never happened to me before." And a couple other people who were in there were like they felt it's because I used techniques that were specifically for addiction and trauma and things like that, and they had never had a healing that was so pinpointed and focused. So they felt it like it was like a healing on steroids for them.
Beautiful.
That's how.
And that's one of those acts of service we're talking about. You're giving back, helping others, right?
Exactly. So that's why I was so happy to do it. And I felt so supercharged that day. Like it was the best. And hearing their feedback was like so amazing. Like I was on cloud nine for 3 days on that. It was the best thing ever. Because they were coming up to me for a couple of days afterwards, like
Giving you
complimenting
that experience.
And they felt. I was like, wow, it's so awesome. So that made me feel amazing.
I love that. I love that. And what a journey that is. And I know that we only just, in the break that we had, we just talked about it because Richie said he had something that he wanted to share as a little gift for people who are watching out there who are hearing this today, who might be struggling with their sobriety or dealing with grief or dealing with loss. Richie's going to do a little bit of a card reading that he is, because he's also an angel card reader. So Richie, you want to share with us what you're going to give everyone as a little gift today and set the intention for everyone listening?
Sure. So basically, so yeah, I'm an angel card reader as well. It's funny, I actually did angel card readings for probably half the staff at my treatment center, and they were all dumbfounded.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So what we're gonna do is, so I'm gonna just pull a couple of angel cards, whatever cards I'm shuffling now, whatever cards the angels feel would be beneficial for anyone who's suffering with addiction, or just suffering in general, suffering from with depression, anxiety, just any kind of suffering that they're feeling about, and maybe this will give some sort of direction as for help, and for things to do, and as to maybe how to seek help or how to get help, or do you need help? Whoa, this one really fell out. Ooh, Jesus. These all four fell out at one time. Literally just fell out of the deck on my lap.
Maybe those are the ones that we are choosing then, eh?
Doing. I don't argue with angels.
Yeah, don't argue with angels. Tell us what we got in there and what the messages they have for everyone listening out who is suffering.
All right. So because I'm in my mid-40s, I need my readers, so don't make fun of me.
We have Dr. Richie in the house. Give us your prescription.
Exactly. Right. This is what happens with age. And I had LASIK surgery too, so I made it to 46 with no glasses, so I'm all right.
Yeah.
Traditional viewpoints or methods, spiritual organizations, seek out mentors and like-minded friends. Oh, very interesting. This podcast is done by a mentor. Wonder how that happened. I swear to God, these just fell out. I didn't pick them.
No, everyone saw that. They just fell out.
They did. See, it's on camera. Okay. Happy outcome. Brilliant new ideas that lead to success. Have confidence in yourself.
Beautiful message. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful message. The power of creativity, recognition for high quality work. Be a team player.
That sounds like that acts of service, helping others, right?
Well, it's acts of service, helping others, but also what I take from it is for people who are struggling, with any sort of, whether it's, like I said, addiction, trauma, whatever it is.
Mental health, addictions, traumas, yeah.
Yeah. It takes a village. It's not something you're going to be able to do alone. So this is saying, the power of creativity, recognition for high quality work, be a team player. Don't be afraid to be a team player. Don't be afraid to tell others, because there are others who are going through the same thing that you are.
Totally.
So afraid to be on that team, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. The power of creativity. Something might pop up where you may not have thought to do something, but do it anyway, because you may never know who you'll find.
Exactly.
So that's what I get that from that message. The last one is objective decision making, clearing away all that no longer serves you, seeing the humor in a situation. That's a very powerful message. One thing I've done within recovery is I have cleared away all of the things that don't serve me. If it doesn't serve me, it's not staying in my presence. If I have no use for it, it's gone. Now in my life, I have no use for alcohol. I have no use for my ex. I have no use for.
And I was going to say that's not just things. That's sometimes people as well. Because I know on my journey of cleaning things out, I had to let go of a lot of the people that I used to do all of the partying with, because you can't hang around with people taking drugs and not expect to have cravings to take drugs. Right. So I had to do the same thing, like clearing out of things. Like I got rid of all of the wine glasses I had in my house when I cleared up, got clean and sober, because I was like, well, why would I have wine glasses in my house if I'm not going to drink them? And yes, I might have guests over, but I don't want people to come over to my house and use this as a drinking pool, So it was a way of doing that, clearing out people and things that are no longer serving you.
Well, and like I said, in recovery, they say, changing people, places, and things is a very good way to basically clean house. So I love these cards that were pulled. I think it's basically telling everyone, hey, listen, if you
suffering,
if you're suffering, if you need seek out mentors, like-minded people, which is part of being a team player, because, once you do seek out the mentors and like-minded people, well, then you're part of a team if you're around like-minded people. Once you're part of that team, you can think objectively, and, you clear away all that no longer serves you, which is on another card. Then comes the happy outcome and brilliant new ideas to success and having confidence in yourself. So all of these, not the order I read them in, but all of these, when you arrange them properly, one leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. They all link together. And that's why I said it the way I said it, purposely, with things from the cards, because each card links to another, and each one links to another and to another. So all these cards are linked together.
They are.
The same message carried through. But if you follow the path that these cards are sending you on, you will have that happy outcome. And it is possible to have that happy outcome. And you're looking at someone who had the happy outcome.
They look
because I felt
went through the journey that those 4 cards have just literally shared with us today, and it shows you what can happen on the other side of it. So what a beautiful message and a gift to share with anyone out there who is suffering, who may be wanting to go on a journey like this, or again, suffering with mental health, traumas, anything out there, that on the other side of it, if you do the work, you can have that happy outcome. So Richie, I just want to acknowledge you for putting in the hard work, for going through the tough times, and for sharing your story so vulnerably here on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure, one, being your coach, but also 2, just seeing you shine and really go forth in your own direction. So yeah, thank you so much for coming here and sharing with that, all of that with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me on and allowing me to share all that. It really was a pleasure for me to do 100%. I was very honored that I was asked. So thank you for having me on here. And I really did enjoy doing it.
Beautiful. And Richie, for anyone out there who might be just struggling, can anyone reach out to you and find you somewhere? Like, do you have any details of people? How could someone find Richie if they were looking to just, maybe share some love or to ask a question about your journey?
Well, the best way would probably be through Facebook. Under Richard Delucia, DELUCIA on Facebook. You'll see a picture of me with my little puppy on there.
And I'll link that below, so that if anyone does want it, they can just click easily through the comments below.
Because I never remember what it is.
So good.
Richie _ 1123 is my Instagram.
Beautiful. I'll link your Facebook for people anyway.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. It's been a pleasure. I trust you've got some fantastic things from today's episode. If you've got any questions, you've got any comments, you've got any shares, you know where to find me. And I'm going to be back here next week with a brand new episode of the Queer Quest podcast. Always remember that you've got this and I've got you. Bye for now.